COVID dead could poison the living due to groundwater pollution. Hey everybody, Venomnus here. Experts are warning that an increase in buried bodies as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic could be having an impact in the environment. So, yes, all those dead are going to poison your groundwater. Let's read how. In the U.S. alone, the number of people who have died with COVID-19 exceeded 900,000 this month, and the number is increasing all the time. Around the world, the death toll is over 5.8 million, according to the World Health Organization, though some estimates of excess mortality, a measure comparing all deaths recorded with those expected to occur, have put the figure close to 20 million. Oh my goodness. What this means is the burial facilities have faced unprecedented pressure as they attempt to allocate space and resources to store the bodies of those who have passed away. You can stop that. This presents an environmental problem since dead bodies and the processes used to bury them, respectively, are not always particularly clean. Buried bodies release what is known as crematory leachate, a liquid composed of organic substances, can be highly toxic and with associations with cancer. Metallic elements, medicines used by the person when they were living, preservation chemicals, and even pacemakers can all contribute to this leaking substance. One study from 2019 suggests that the coffee materials too may leak in the environment and potentially pose health problems. These materials included metals such as aluminum, iron, and copper. In a study released in October last year, researchers noted that the environmental impact caused by decomposing bodies was another casualty of the SARS-CoV-2 pandemic. It described how this crematory leachate can flow into the soil near to burial sites and potentially reach underground water resources. According to the study, it is possible to infer that the high number of the human losses caused by the COVID-19 pandemic may also raise the level of contamination in cemetery environments and consequently in the surrounding urban environment, especially for medium to large cities. Alcindo Neckel, what a funny name, is an environmental engineer and professor at the School of Architecture and Urbanism at IMED in Brazil. He led a similar study investigating the problem there, which concluded that vertical rather than horizontally designed crematories could allow for the implementation of technologies that adequately treat the liquid pollutants. Vertical rather than horizontal, eh? Sounds familiar. We'll get right into that in a minute. Knuckle told Popular Science last week that cemeteries need to have disposal systems in place, similar to how wastewater is treated in coastal areas before it is released in the ocean. This is not just a public health issue, but also an economic problem in the growing cities, he added. At this rate, dead people are slowly poisoning those who are alive. Oh my goodness. Now, this is very familiar. Let's go to an article I wrote 2 years ago called Oh Grave New World, picking the environmentally friendly unperson option. So, here was an article. Can you calm down? I'm trying to do some work here. This is from a Vancouver article, 2019. Stacking up the dead. Vancouver Cemetery looks to add more bodies to one grave. What? Vancouver's only cemetery is thinking outside the pine box in its efforts to find space, become more environmentally friendly, and make the graveyard an interesting place for the living. Because that's where the living want to spend their time. Vancouver Council has approved changes that would allow strangers to share grave spaces, could permit 3 or more bodies in one site, will establish green burial option, and would consider eliminating tombstones or markers. So you wouldn't know who's buried? Is that right? So you'd stack them up? Oh, okay. Cemetery's manager Glenn Hodges said the changes could allow for hundreds of other spaces to keep the site operating in an environmentally friendly way. One of the concepts that we'll be looking at for our green burial areas is also the notion of non-permanent markers. This notion that the body is buried and is naturally returns to the earth, that some people might be interested in having that same sort of return to the earth symbolized in their memorial or marker. So, what is the definition of a mass grave? A mass grave is a grave containing multiple numbers of human corpses, which may or may not be identified, no markers, prior to burial. There is no strict definition of the minimum number of bodies required to constitute a mass grave, although the United Nations defines a mass grave as a burial site which contains 3 or more victims of execution. So minus the victims of execution, now I say that, but at the same time, you have to wonder what's happening in those hospitals. I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, but I'm going to say it. I think they're executing. Okay, I'm not going to say it. Mass graves are an infamous variation on common burials, still occasionally practiced today under normal circumstances, like legally through a city. I want to stack more people on one grave and charge you multiple fees for that one grave site. Still occasionally practiced. Okay, I read that. Mass or communal burial was a common practice before the development of a dependable crematory chamber by an Italian named Brutanetti in 1873. In Paris, the practice of mass burial, and it goes on. Now, so 2 or more strangers can share rights to what was traditionally one grave. Yeah. Under the law, when a person is buried in a spot and its perpetuity, that's a bad word. Especially when the bunny keeps rattling its cage, it's really distracting. Hodges said, reusing or adding bodies would only be done with permission from the person authorized to make a decision. For now. The previous city bylaw allowed 2 caskets in the gravesite with a 40-year period. Hodges said, a body takes up a lot of space and air when it's buried in a traditional casket, far more than if a person is buried in a shroud. The volume of space in the ground that 2 caskets take could easily accommodate 3 bodies that are so wrapped in shrouds, maybe even 4, so that the kind of more economic and more dense use of that space that reflects in the economics, I can't even read the word, economics of the grave. Many crematories for some reason. Many cemeteries require people to be buried in a coffin and with concrete liners to prevent the ground from sinking above as the bodies decompose. So, Hodges said Mountain View is considering a more sustainable option where there is no other outer container, no casket, and no embalming that allows the decomposition process to occur faster. May be able to accommodate 2 or 3 or 4 burials of bodies in one typical grave within a time frame of 30 to 40 to 50 years, he said. Stacking the bodies would mean going back into a grave site to dig further than the traditional 6 feet under to perhaps 9 or 10 feet, Hodges said. Wasn't that get you closer to the groundwater? The idea of eliminating grave markers in place of central memorial stone would also allow more areas of the perimeter to be used. So, oops. Okay. So, there was that. Then, now I report on this stuff a lot back in the few years back. This is kind of my, not to sound morbid, but death is kind of my thing here. When it comes to studying the agendas, I've done a lot of work in the way they're shaping how we look at death and how we bury our dead, right? So I've covered a lot of stuff. Now, let's scroll back up here a minute. There was another article I did here. They're coming to take me away, ho ho hee hee ha ha. Yep, that's literally the title. And I'm just going to go straight to the article because I put the link here. No, wait, that's not it. That's the stacking up the dead. Sorry, my bad. There we go. Canada's first body farm to open in Quebec, and people are already signing up to be donors. Certainly, she tells them they would be in a natural environment, left to decompose on the surface of the ground, in the open air, or perhaps in a shallow grave. Now, no, yes, I didn't even. Okay. Now, funny enough, do I have the? Oh, I do have the link. Good, good, good. So I wanted to go check out the article. This one is one of the few ones I wrote without many screenshots. So I have to go to the article. When people ask what will happen to their corpses if they donated to a body farm for research, Dr. Sherry Forbes provides them with as much or as little detail as they wished. Certainly she tells them they would be in a natural environment and left to decompose on the surface of the ground, even in open air, perhaps in a shallow grave. She might tell them that their bodies could be placed in the trunk of a car or wrapped in bags, a duvet, a carpet, various forms of concealment to mimic real crime scenes. Their corpses would be left for many months, perhaps years, while scientists study how the local climate of back home, Quebec, just across the river from the includes. Sorry, I'm not trying to mock French. I just can't stand it. Impacts the 5 different stages of human decomposition: fresh bloat, active decay, advanced decay, and skeletonization, or how quickly their soft tissues is lost to necrophagous insects like beetles and blowflies. Remarkably, people are already signing on. Sometime this summer, construction will begin in Canada's first human taphomony facility. That's an interesting word. More colloquially known, some say gruesomely, as a body farm. So people, this is like, remember, or a shallow grave. So like literally bodies in a mass grave. And there's more programming like that. Then we go to here. Euthanasia by organ donation. Should we allow doctors to retrieve people's organs while they're still alive? Yes. Like the Borg recovering their dead's instruments. Under this scenario, people granted an assisted death would, with their full knowledge and consent, be transported to an operating room, put to sleep under general anesthesia, and their organs removed, including the heart and lungs. Death would follow removal of the beating heart. Under so-called euthanasia by organ donation, the act of organ donation itself, not a lethal injection or doctor-prescribed life-ending dose of barbiturates, would be the mode of death. Doing so would require an amendment to the Criminal Code of Canada, the author's note, which states that medical assistance in dying must involve the administration of medications or a substance, not organ extraction. Because voluntary euthanasia creates organ donation opportunities that differ from existing pathways, they wrote, it may be necessary to develop new protocols specific to these patients. Also like to be an organ donor? Well, if you said to me, what is the optimal way to accomplish both of these things? It put in the patient to sleep so they won't have any discomfort and there won't be any air hunger. There won't be any anxiety or fear, and then take their organs out. Like, they do in the black market. But yeah. You aren't doing any harm. The patient is dying. The patient is going to die, Shapiro said. You are never taking a patient who would have lived a normal life and killing them. Well, I disagree. If they got the help that they needed, maybe they wouldn't need assistance in dying. Now, because of the way that things are changing, not every patient that wants assisted death and is getting assisted death is necessarily someone who is terminally ill and is going to die. That has changed, people. That has changed. You can get euthanized for depression. Yes, it has happened in other countries, and it's happening. It will happen here, without a doubt. They've already. I don't have the article on hand, but in Quebec, Quebec is an effed up state or province. Let's just be honest. They're effed. Okay, they're messed in the fucking head, and they do shitty and weird things. Like, for instance, they've mature minors. The whole thing they've been using with the stabby. Before that, they've been using it way before that. They've been using it for assisted death here in Quebec. Not here. I'm not in Quebec, but in Canada, where they said that a mature minor, whatever the hell that means, can go in with a doctor and discuss getting, snuffed, basically. And I've covered it a lot. I've covered the Seuss, the death, just death. I've covered death a lot, okay? And in different aspects. I've covered how they're pushing it through different ways of burying people. Like, very much, this is this is how you program people slowly. And I'll explain what the ultimate goal here is. They program in many ways. They're programming them to see getting themselves snuffed out, getting killed, as a viable option at any state of life, any condition you're in, whether you have a terminal illness or you just not happy with your life, depressed and have a mental illness and whatever, you will have options to kill yourself. Like they killed 2 children, 3 actually, a 9 and 11-year-old and a 17-year-old in Belgium. Yes, the youngest ever to be euthanized, a 9-year-old and 11-year-old. That happened. I have more. Some teen was euthanized through just for depression, and that's, I don't know where that happened. Probably also Belgium. I have an article somewhere. But the way we look at death, there's another story here. One about the cremation and recovering of precious metals inside the dead. So anything artificial in your body, pacemakers, like hip replacements and stuff like that. They're talking about reduce, reuse, and rethink is a CBC News series about recycling. And we're looking at ways to change how you think about the dead, how you can use them, repurpose them. Why should all that stuff just go to waste? Thousands of dollars a year, money from recycling metal joints and other implants goes to charity. I'm not saying it's all bad, necessarily. It's not about that. You have to look underneath. What's between the lines here, people? It's about recycling the dead. It's about taking human bodies and using them as a resource. And this goes beyond just the implants in the body. It goes way beyond. It's about the nutrients of the human, such as this that just came out, February 16, 2022. Is eating people a solution for world hunger? To world hunger, I mean? The science behind Soylent Green. I haven't even read this yet. I just saw the title. Released in 1973, Soylent Green imagines a dystopian nightmare version of 2022 in which overpopulation, climate disaster have made the Earth nearly unlivable. Resource and housing shortage have exacerbated class stratification. stratification, with the wealthy living in lush, reinforced houses, while the rest, or in our reality, they're living underground now. But I digress. Reinforced houses, while the rest of the population is scourging for scraps just to survive. With not enough to eat, half of the world's population is sustained only by a staple food source created and sold by the Soylent Corporation. It comes in various colors, the best of which is the titular Soylent Green. Company bills their new green variety as more nutritious, having been manufactured from oceanic plankton. But by the end, we know the truth. Soylent Green is people! The film was a stark commentary about the dangers of destroying our environment and the lengths to which some corporations could go to maintain profit. Now that we're actually in 2022, the world has seen an increase in novelty foods, including one supposed meal replacement shake named after the famed movie. The question now is, could we really make Soylent, and would we want to? Supposing our course, we decided we wanted to transform our lost loved ones into food. We could definitely do it. The infrastructure already exists. After all, humans are just meat, no different from any other animal at the end of the day. The easiest way to do it, but the least palatable, particularly if you're trying to hide what you're doing, as was the case in the film, would be to treat humans the way we treat livestock. Establish a butchering process, package the cut meat, put it on the shelf, job done. But we suspect that if we're going to eat people, we'll want at least the illusion that we're eating something else, so let's think of other options. If you ever looked at a seasoning packet, you probably noticed they list chicken, beef, pork, or other meats as ingredients. Yet, when you look inside, all you'll find is powder. Where's the beef? It's in the powder, of course, and if we want to make human biscuit, that's probably the way to go. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you reading this shit? Meat powders are fairly simple to produce. Typically, the skin and bones of your chosen animal are removed, though in a pinch, that may not be strictly necessary. After dressing, they go through a dehydration process, either using dehydrator or cooking over a low temperature for an extended period. The aim is to remove as much moisture as possible. Finally, meat is ground into a powder and sifted to remove any chunks which were missed. At this point, your Soylent people are unrecognizable and ready to be baked into crackers or used for soup bases. The possibilities are endless. Would Soylent make a good food? Nutritionally, sure. Human bodies are made of the same sorts of other things as other animals. You could get protein and fat, albeit at different distributions than other animals. All things being equal, eating human meat is a perfectly efficient way of calorie exchange. Certainly other animals have done it throughout our history. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on if you're being eaten or doing the eating, things aren't equal. Animal meat produced at factory farms undergoes all sorts of precautions in order to prevent the transmission of disease to people consuming it. Livestock animals are given antibiotics throughout their lives, and the presence of disease is usually cause for that individual animal to be discarded. Even still, factory farms still present a significant disease risk. If we're eating people, especially ordinary people, there's little guarantee those same precautions would be present. Moreover, there are comparatively few diseases which jump species from animals to humans. Every disease a person has necessarily infects humans, so the risk of disease transmission from contaminated meat would be immense. Of course, properly cooking and preparing our Soylent could eliminate a significant number of those diseases, but not all of them. Mad cow disease occasionally prompts recalls of tainted meat. The disease is caused by prions, which cause proteins in the brain to fold irregularly. Prions don't respond to temperatures at which meat is normally cooked. In order to fully denature prions, they have to be heated to temperatures of 1000 degrees Celsius or more. They've been shown to remain effective even after being heated to 600 degrees 600 degrees Celsius. Nobody cooks meat at those temperatures. Similar prion diseases exist in humans and are documented to have been transmitted through cannibalism, creating a system in which half the human population gets most of their food from human remains might be a highly efficient way to end our species. Is so even sustainable? Let's suppose we solve all those problems. A robust marketing campaign has convinced humanity that eating the deceased is not only acceptable but noble, and we've discovered ways to efficiently rid the meat of dangerous pathogens. Could it even sustain itself? This one is pretty obvious, no. A pretty obvious no. The only way this system is sustainable is if there's a consistent one for one exchange. Every living person gets to eat one dead person. Then they themselves are eaten. You'd have to create a sort of horrible perpetual motion machine of consumption in which no energy is ever lost. Even still, the average human, about 136 pounds, and the average adult in America eats roughly 525 pounds of food every year. Even if you were eating everything, organs, bones, the whole shebang, a person would only provide about a quarter of the food you need for a single year. Moreover, the birth and death rates don't line up. Last year, it's estimated that roughly 140 million people were born, while only 60 million died, and that was during a disease pandemic. Not only is the prospect of turning people into crackers despicable and dangerous, it's also just a bad business model. Now, do you really think that this person is writing this article to shit on the idea of eating the dead? No, it's to put the thought in your head more. They've been doing this for a few years, people. They seem to do it, the news cycle, it recycles, right? Just like they want to recycle you, the news cycle recycles. But yeah, there was an article I wrote. I would love to grab it right now. Is there anything else in this one? If not, I will see if I can find it. I wonder if that'll work. Yeah. When did this happen? 2 years ago. So it was early in the beginning of the you-know-what. And there was this interesting event that happened that at a AOC talk, this woman was a part of a group that's suspicious in itself, jumps up and says, "We got to eat the babies." Let's play that clip.
Getting rid of fossil fuel is not going to solve the problem fast enough. So I think your next campaign slogan has to be this: we got to start eating babies. We don't have enough time. There's too much CO2. All of you, you're a pollutant. Too much CO2. We have to start now, please. You are so great. I'm so happy that you really support a nuclear deal, but it's not enough. Even if we would bomb Russia, we still have too many people, too much pollution. So we have to get rid of the babies. That's a big problem. Just stopping having babies is not enough. We need to eat the babies, and this is very serious. Please give a response.
Thank you. No, thank you. We'll go ahead. I think we all need to understand that there are a lot of solutions that we have and that we can pursue, and that if we act in a positive way, there's space for hope.
The Roche PAC exposed as Ocasio-Cortez troller behind "We Must Eat the Babies" videos. So it was a big ploy, but things go deeper than they look, right? It's not. Oh fuck! I forgot I put credit in a Subway wrapper.
How dare you?
Oh, I'm freaking hilarious. Anyways, but that wasn't it. Also, what happened that year? Oh my god, so much. All these Jeff C videos I have linked in this video are gone. But where is it? Did I actually link the article? No, but you can see it in the picture. The Swedish scientist says humans should become cannibals to fight climate change because eating human flesh is more sustainable than the meat industry. Now that was a serious article. It wasn't like this one. It wasn't a troll. It wasn't trolling. This guy was serious about people eating the elderly. He wasn't eating babies, but he wanted to eat the elderly for the climate. But yeah, this is just continuing the programming. And that's what it has to do with the burying people part. Because statistically, they talk about how, oh shit, I just closed the article, but you know what they were talking about, the groundwater being poisoned because too many people are being buried because of the pandemic. But if you look at the statistics, cremation has replaced traditional burials in popularity in America, and people are getting creative with those ashes. And yeah, look at the statistics here. I looked at the statistics. According to the 2020 NFDA, which is it's like the National Funeral Funeral Director Association or whatever. According to the 2020 NFDA Cremation and Burial Report, in 2020, the projected burial rate is 37.5%, down 7.7% from 2015, and projected cremation rate is 56.0%, up 8.1% from 2015. Cremations are outpacing burials by a big number. That is the main choice of people because it's cheaper and a lot easier to do. And it goes even further now because of the alkaline hydrolysis. Alkaline hydrolysis. From traditional to bizarre, how America wants to be buried in 2020. We surveyed over 1,500 people to take a pulse, so to speak, on burial traditions today. In the past, the most common thing to do with a body after death in the United States was traditional burial. That is, a casket laid in the ground in the cemetery. This choice was followed by cremation, and the number of traditional burials heavily outweighed cremations. In 1960, for instance, only 4% of Americans were cremated, while almost all the rest were buried traditionally. But times have changed. Burial practices have shifted significantly since the 1960s, and they only continue to evolve. Here is how America wants to be buried in 2020. And you look, 35%. This is based on a survey, so it's fairly similar to the actual statistics, where the cremation is higher than traditional burial. And then you got they don't have a plan. Donate to science. Natural burial is still fairly low, but that's going to grow. The whole green burial movement as they program it further. And then your 1%. What is that even? The other? What is other? Doesn't matter. And then you got your 40% spread in a specific location. 36% keep their family and earn. Plant as a tree, 10%. People love that one. They want to plant as trees. There's heavy programming for that too. And then it gets more ridiculous as you go on. But the main point is, both in the survey of 2020 in America, the cremation outpaces traditional burial. Same with statistics, they show the same. So the whole argument that, I closed the article, the whole argument about groundwater being poisoned and we gotta stack up the graves is based on nonsense. as always the case. So I was looking at, because then we got to look at alkaline hydrolysis, which is using water to cremate the body. There's several names for it. For decades, people choosing what happens in their body after death have had only two realistic options, burial or cremation. But that may be changing. A body process called alkaline hydrolysis, AH, is available in about 18 states, and every year more states are considering legalizing the technology. The process may go by another name in your areas, such as biocremation, resumation, aquamation, green cremation, flameless cremation, or water cremation. So that consists of two chemicals, a solution of 9% water and 5% potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide to reduce body components to liquid and bone. Bone fragments are retained so that they can be dried and turned into a substance similar to cremated ash. Bone byproduct of AH may be scattered, buried, or disposed in any way cremated ashes are handled. Implants such as dental fillings or pacemakers can be easily separated from the bone fragments. So there you go. There's your recovery of the implants and stuff in people's bodies, just like they do with the regular cremation. They could do it there. Bone fragments before the bones are rendered into ash. A liquid byproduct of alkaline hydrolysis is a non-toxic solution of amino acids, peptides, sugars, and soap that can be disposed of through local sewage systems. Many have uncomfortably analogized. Why can't I say that word? Analogized. There you go. This process to pouring bodies down the drain. A characterization that often overlooks the fact that body fluids and blood are routinely poured down the drain during traditional embalming practices. Essentially, alkaline hydrolysis mirrors the chemical decomposition that happens when a body is buried, except AH takes just hours, from 3 to 12 hours, depending on the temperature and pressure in the chamber, instead of months or years. And then we can see what states. So Alabama, no law. Alaska, no law. Arizona, no law. Arkansas, no law. California, legal but not available in the state. Colorado, allowed without explicit statute. Connecticut, no law. Delaware, no law. Florida, legal and available in the state. Georgia, allowed without explicit statute, but not available in the state. Hawaii, no law. Idaho, legal but not available in the state. Illinois, legal and available in the state. Indiana, no law. Iowa, no law. Kansas, legal but not available. Yada, yada, yada. So, yeah. I guess if you want to know, you should just look it up in your own state. If you live in the States, I do not. I don't even know what provinces allow it. It's come up in my search and I look for it. So, then there's the whole natural burial thing and this creepy thing. Oh, wait, let me just show you. This creepy creature here. Don't bury or cremate. Soon you'll compost your corpse. That was hard to say for some reason. You can compost your corpse. I don't know why I say compost your compost. That makes no sense. The advocates of the procedure suggest it could be a more environmentally benign way to dispose of human remains. They took the idea from farmers who compost whole cows. I'm just going to jump through it. Compost the whole animal. The body is placed within layers of organic materials like hay, silage, and even manure. So yeah, get buried in shit, people. Was that a better way to bury your dead? Just put them in a pile of shit. This soil can then be used to grow even new life. Oh yay! Eventually you can be a lemon tree. Aw, want to be a lemon tree? Sour fucking tree. Environmentally friendly pod which decomposes and is buried above the burial site. Trees planted. Who gives a shit? There's your tree programming. There, you're back right in the womb again, in your fetal position. So yeah. Some things that have been used in our trials and in other materials composting would be things like wood chips, hay, grains, types of organic materials can be used. So anyways, there's a video on the channel Ask a Mortician. Now this creature This one here, she does a lot of conditioning. I would say a lot of her videos are about conditioning you to lean the way to the eco-death takeover. Preparing severely decomposed bodies. She's gross. Anyways, there was this video just kind of give you a demonstration of how they would bury your body.
You're not
in a hive.
at the end of this process.
Look at this.
At the end of the process,
Freaking honeycomb. And look at anyone. Get back. Get back.
You're not human anymore at the end of this process. At the end of the
Anyone who has a haircut like this is questionable. Their mental state. She has a mullet with shaved sides. No. I question your mental health when I see that. Sorry. That's what happens.
The process, you cease to be human.
The climate crisis at some fundamental level is a soil crisis.
Fully embracing myself is organic matter. Just something to rot and decay.
And what made you decide on this design here, this honeycomb design? Is it because we're entering the great hive mind of society here, where we all will be dealt with like drones, dead to rot away, with no memory of our death, because we won't have any markers and we won't exist anymore. We'll be dehumanized.
So, you're probably wondering how I got here, moments away from having my dead body composted. Honestly, I blame my friend, Katrina Spade. We need to go back to 2011, when Katrina was working on her Master's of Architecture. Her thesis was on how we handle dead bodies in crowded urban areas, since conventional burials and even cremation carry pretty high environmental costs. Green burial, where the body is put directly into the soil in a simple shroud, was the ideal solution, and has the added bonus of being what many cultures have done with their dead for tens of thousands of years. But land is at a premium in highly populated areas. When was the last time you saw a Target or a Walmart or a skyscraper torn down to reclaim the land as a green burial cemetery? A girl can only dream. This was when Katrina learned that farmers had been composting livestock for decades. That's right, composting. Like that sweet soil-generating pile in your backyard, but breaking down a dead human body. A revolution was born. By 2015...
Anyways, we don't need to go into that. So yeah. Just wanted to show you the design of the thing. But yeah. So like I said, they have to change the way you think of death in order to help with the programming the reuse of humans. Because the more you treat them, dehumanize them, you take away the markers, how you bury them in mass graves, how you just the overall outlook of humans, turn them into fertilizer for growing food. Well, why not just turn them into food? You could do that. They're just, after all, they are, what are they? Where was it? No, that wasn't it. Where did I see it? Is it here? It doesn't matter. But what it reduces human beings to is sugars and peptides and whatnot. These things could be ingredients for food at some point, and that's where we come to the Soylent Green scenario. No, it wouldn't work at feeding person to person, but the number of birth rates is declining significantly. Eventually, we're going to be down to the point where it's going to be equal. And when the big food crisis really hits, and it's coming, people, I've been telling you for over a couple of years now. I know it hasn't come yet, but it's been shrinking slowly. They warned us. They warned us in 2015's food chain reaction. It's a security game, food security game in 2015 that talks about two major food crises, not one, two. And the first one would begin in 2020, and food did have a crisis because of mainly because of things getting cut off. A lot of farms being their crops being buried or left to rot because the shut-in lockdowns and stuff of businesses that would take lots of food normally, and a lot of that caused a lot of shortage issues, and people having to line up to get food. That was the beginning of it, just like they said in the scenario, food chain reaction. And there was two of them. They said two crises brought on within the 10-year frame of 2020 to 2030, and food prices would rise. Food inflation would rise up to 400%. Now, we haven't seen that rise yet, but we haven't gotten to that point. But the year is now 2022. What happened in 2022? Soylent Green. They had a massive food shortage. Why do you think they're programming you with this? Would it work to eat humans? Would that be a solution to world hunger? Well, maybe part of it would. Maybe using humans in some capacity, like they're trash, as it came out in DARPA. That's not even new news either. I've heard about that years ago. They started with the military. They've talked about taking plastics and using them to be like things like vanilla extract. Plastics to take your trash. I think Bill Gates wants to own all the trash dumps, just like Camille said in her recent video, "What Keeps Her Up at Night." Great video. I have it on my channel. Watch it. She makes a good case. Something that I've thought myself. A lot of us have thought about the recycling of things to be made as food. DARPA's new program turns waste into food. I've been saying that they're going to turn your poop into food. They're going to use the bacterial stuff, E. coli and stuff, to turn that into food and feed it to you. And they're going to use the 3D printers. In your home, you'll have a 3D printer. You won't be able to go to the market anymore. You can virtually shop for sure. You'll have your VR shopping. You can pick out what they allow you to have. But a lot of people are going to rely on these 3D printers. You're going to order your little gel packs or whatever they come in. They're 3D printable inks, food inks, and you're going to print off your food in the home kitchen. And eventually that stuff is going to be just made from your own waste because they're collecting your waste all the time. Why do you think they've started doing the testing of the sewage for you know what? It's not about that. It's not about pathogens. So much more than that. I wonder how long we've been going. 50 minutes. Okay, I think I'll wrap this up soon. I've been doing a longer video because I had so much to talk about. But yeah. Oh, look, they even mentioned 3D printing. Logistics of the battlefield are a challenge, and conflicts are typically staged in remote or otherwise difficult to access areas. The military has been working on the problem for a while. Last year, the Army Research Lab made progress of 3D printed parts in the field using simple 3D printers to produce high-quality parts. Okay, that's not related to the food, but anyways. There's also the great protein disruption that they've talked about. Disruption. What are they called? X something. Think X, that's what it was. I think it's Think X. Oh, Rethink X. Anyways, I covered that in an article years ago, 2019. Just before the you-know-what hit. New report major disruption in food and agriculture next decade. Rethink X projects collapse of dairy and cattle industries by 2030 as animal meat is replaced by cheaper, higher quality food made from precision fermentation protein. By 2030, modern products will be higher quality, cost less, and are less than half the price of the animal-derived foods they replace. Dairy and cattle industries will have collapsed, and the rest of the livestock industry will fall. That's according to a new report, Rethinking Food and Agriculture 2020 to 2030, the second domestication of plants and animals, the disruption of the cow, and the collapse of industrial livestock farming, released by Rethink X, an independent think tank that analyzes and forecasts the scope, speed, and scale of technology-driven disruption and its implications across society. This is primarily a protein disruption driven by economics, said Toby Seba, Rethink X co-founder and report co-author. This is not about disruption, but many in parallel, with each overlapping, reinforcing, and accelerating the others. Technology we call precision fermentation and a new production model called food as software are dramatically driven down the costs of driving up the quality of modern proteins, said report co-author Catherine Tubb. The industrial livestock industry is one of the oldest, largest, and most inefficient food production systems in the world. Modern ingredients in the foods are about 10 times more efficient across the board, from land and water use to feedstock consumption and energy use. The precision fermentation is a process that enables the programming of microorganisms to produce almost any complex organic molecule. They'll make anything. You can make nacho flavored bananas, just like in the movie The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where his daughter pops up in the morning, asks him, does he want a regular banana or a nacho flavored banana? That's because it's a food as software product. It was telling you back then. That was a 2009 movie, I think. Lots of crazy things came out in 2009. The cost is dropping exponentially because of rapid improvements in underlying biological and information technologies. The cost to produce a single molecule using PF has fallen from 1 million per kilogram to 2,000 to about $100 today, $100 today, assuming existing technologies and using well-established cost curves. The report projects that these costs will fall below $10 per kilogram by 2025, and that these proteins will be 5 times cheaper than traditional animal proteins by 2030 and 10 times cheaper by 2035. By 2030, modern food products will cost less than half as much to produce as animal derived products that they replace. At the same time, this new production system has the potential to spur competition and fast iteration of products that are ever cheaper and ever better, more nutritious, healthier, better tasting, more convenience, and more varied, as long as open markets and nutritional standards are protected. So yeah, food as software, people. Don't think that your waste, your trash, your human waste, human bodies won't be part of that equation. I guarantee they will be part of that equation as they further denigrate the humanity of death, treating you just like anything else that's dead. You're just matter. You're just dead matter. You didn't exist as a human. You didn't matter as a human. That's the goal here, people. Because they have to deprogram you or reprogram you to think that way so that it's okay to eat those things. It's just all about nutrients. It's all about food as software. Humans as software. There was one more thing I was thinking about when I was reading that. What was it? What was in my head at the time I was reading that? Oh yeah. And they have ways to destroy the meat industry, because this has been doing its rounds, and I've been warning about this since very early in the you-know-what event that has taken place for the last going on 3 years. I've been warning about this, if it'll do anything. Come on. All right, we're almost at an hour. I'm going to wrap up in an hour here. Come on. Okay. We had a little failure here. Let's try that again. This has been popping up in the news a lot. The warning, there's been a... We're not allowed to buy livestock here right now in Newfoundland. You can't buy chickens and stuff because of this thing. Apparently that's somewhat common here, they say. But this recent one, farmers in western Nova Scotia on high alert after a recent discovery of the you-know-what flu, the AV flu, bird flu detected in multiple chickens, turkey, so it's spreading. This was happening in the beginning of the you-know-what, same time as the you-know-what. And it spread, and then it died down, and it spread again, and it died down. Now it's spreading again, and I'm telling you, it's what they're going to use to wipe up the livestock, whether it's actually legitimate you-know-what, or just a reason to call the herds, just like they want to call us. Doesn't matter. The point is they're going to use it to restrict your ability to farm, your ability to homestead, your ability to grow livestock. That's what it's going to be used for. They don't want you to grow your own food. And I've shown this in the New Order of Barbarians. Which I'm going to have to re-upload all those because they were on my main channel before it was taken down. I want the transcript. Yep, that's the one. Let's see. Come on. I want to wrap this up. This is important. You gotta load. We just came yesterday. I'm having internet issues because I think it's just a little residual from yesterday. Super high winds last night till like all day until about after midnight. Super high winds. It was knocking out the internet. Food control. That's what I want. Let's just read a little bit about food control very quick. Food supplies would come under tight control. If population growth didn't slow down, food shortages could be created in a hurry, and people would realize the dangers of overpopulation. Ultimately, whether the population slows down or not, the food supply is to be brought under centralized control so that people would have enough to be well nourished, but they would not have enough to support any fugitive from the new system. In other words, if you had a friend or relative who didn't sign on and growing one's own food would be outlawed, this would be done under some sort of pretext. In the beginning, I mentioned there were two purposes for everything. One, the ostensible purpose, and one, the real purpose. The ostensible purpose here would be that growing your own vegetables was unsafe. It would spread disease or something like that. So the acceptable idea was to protect the consumer, but the real idea was to limit the food supply, and growing your own food wouldn't be illegal. And if you persist in illegal activities like growing your own food, then you're a criminal. This, as I always mention, in case you don't remember or you've never heard this before because you're new to my channel, the New Order of Barbarians is what I have here is just New Order Barbarians referred to on the tape simply as the New World System. Tapes 1 and 2 and 3 were recorded in 1988 and are recollections of Dr. Lawrence Dunnigan regarding a lecture he attended on March 20, 1969 at a meeting of the Pittsburgh Pediatric Society. The lecturer at the gathering of pediatricians identified in the tape 3 recorded in 1991 was Dr. Richard Day, who died in 1989. At the time, Dr. Day was professor of pediatrics at Mount Sinai Medical School in New York. Previously, he had served as medical director in Planned Parenthood Federation of America. Dr. Dunnigan was formerly a student of Dr. Day at the University of Pittsburgh and was well acquainted with him, though not intimately. He describes Dr. Day as one of the insiders of the order, and although Dr. Dunnigan's memory was somewhat dimmed by the intervening years, he is able to provide enough details of the lecture to enable an enlightened person to discern the real purposes behind the trends of our time. This is a transcript of a loose conversational monologue that makes for better listening than reading. The third and final tape of the New Order of Barbarians is an interview by Randy Engel, director of the U.S. Coalition for Life, with Dr. Larry Dunnigan, was taped on October 10th, 1991 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The set of audio tapes may be ordered. Okay, so yeah. Those tapes are important. Just like, say, like Brave New World, you can get so much out of it. So much of the programming you see in Brave New World, you'll see in what he tells you here. So much of the things that he's talked about have either happened or they're on their way of happening. They've just happened. Stuff like that. Food control, people. That's going to happen. That's part of it. That's what feeds the need for DARPA to make your waste into food, and why they're talking about eating people all the time, why cannibalism is a huge thing in the propaganda that I cover. But yeah, that's what I see with this agenda, people. It's to dehumanize you, turn you into a resource rather than a lost loved one. But with that said, that's all I have to say about this for now. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you'd like to support the channel, the best and easiest ways to do it is by liking and sharing the content. But if you'd like to do so more so, nice sentence, do so more so, links are in the description below. I thank you so much. With that said, this is Venomous reporting from the Brave New World. I'll catch you all next time.
Are you talking to me? No way!